Welcome, everyone, to today's Town of Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. The date is February 23rd, 2023. This meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please let us know. Pursuant to Governor Baker's July 16, 2022 signing of an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, including the extension of his March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law until March 31st, 2023. This meeting of the ZBA is being conducted via in-person and remote participation and shall afford adequate alternative means of public access via Microsoft Teams by calling the phone number. You can join us, 1-508-945-4410. Then you have to punch in the ID number for the conference, which is 261-460-757, and then hit the pound. Or you can join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. Despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access, and we will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. In accordance with town policy, the public can speak to any issue, hearing, or business item on the agenda during the meeting when recognized by the chair. We need to authorize this hybrid form of meeting, and we need to have that done by a roll call of all members.
James Upson, I approve of this format.
All C. Simple, I approve the format.
Randy Potash, I approve.
David H. Veach, I approve.
And David S. Nixon, I approve. The first order of business is minutes from,
Yes,
what day, Paul?
I'll move to approve the minutes of January 26, 2023 as published.
Dave Veach seconds.
Buck
need a vote?
approves.
I approve.
I approve.
I approve.
Okay. Before we start the meeting, I want to tell you that Randy has been promoted from an associate member to a regular membership, so congratulations, Randy. Thank you. You certainly deserve it. Okay. What we're going to do today, we have 4 applications, or 5, but really 4. We have been struggling with trying to shorten up our meetings, and we have some changes, and we're going to discuss them up here first, and then anybody in the audience who wishes to join in, I will ask them to give us their opinion. So I'm going to go through the changes, and then we'll go back and visit them one by one. The first is under Section 3, Procedure for Filing. C, materials accompanying an application. We want to change it to 11 copies of a plot plan performed, although you felt maybe we needed to change that wordage?
I believe Jay may want to do a slight
Okay.
modification to the wording on this one.
Okay. Performed and certified by a Massachusetts registered professional land surveyor. This was a change suggested to us by Jay Briggs, our building commissioner. So Jay, could you explain the background of this, please?
Sure. Jay Briggs, Building Commissioner. The only one that can determine property lines or setbacks to property lines to structures would be a professional land surveyor. And therefore, the engineer can't technically provide us with a stamped plan that means anything to us. So just for clarification purposes, the building department always requires a surveyor on the site plan. I think it makes sense to require the stamped site plan by a land surveyor for the ZBA as well.
Sarah thought that maybe the wordage, you didn't like the word performed.
It just seems a little awkward to me. I mean, they're certifying it with their stamp. So, I mean, a stamped site plan would be a certified plan in my eyes.
So it should read stamped and certified.
I believe so.
Okay. Well, we'll make that change. Okay. So going to other changes. Under the same section, under number 7, actually 6 is now going to be a 7. It reads, "A digital copy in PDF format of the complete filing, including all applicable items listed above." What was the reasoning behind this, Sarah?
This one was because currently we have to scan all of the documents in to be able to post them on the website and share our screens for those remote meetings. So in order to get a clearer copy, because the architects generally have it in a digital format, getting a PDF of that, it provides a much clearer image on the screen for everyone to be able to look at.
Thank you. Okay, the next change would be under section 4, hearings. And if we go to E, procedure, number 4. Individuals' comments shall be limited to 5 minutes. Additional time may be allowed at the discretion of the chair. Right now, there's no time involved in our rules and regulations. And then following that, all communications received by the board shall be limited to, this is written communications, shall be limited to 1 page typed or 2 pages handwritten. The deadline for submittal of correspondence to be read into the record shall be no later than the end of the day prior to the scheduled hearing date. And then under 6, the chairman will then allow those in opposition to speak. And again, individuals' comments shall be limited to 5 minutes. Additional time may be allowed at the discretion of the chair. So those are the 3 comments, time-wise and written-wise.
Dave, did you want discussion of these items now, or?
No, I'll go back.
Okay.
I just want to read them all, and then
Yep.
I'll come back. And I think maybe, Sarah, that was it, right?
The final one was simply the application form, because of today's world of
Oh, yeah.
everything
What
pretty much
page are we
being
on,
online.
Sarah?
So you're on the last 2 pages, our application form. There is a section that currently reads, "If the applicant is someone other than the owner of the property, explain the basis for his or her interest in this request." So typically, we never receive this, or they'll put applicant's name / agreed vendee. So they're basically explaining that at the very top of it. So in order to condense this and allow for a space for the email to be provided, since we do have to send out notification via email as well nowadays, we've deleted that line and added email. And then on the final page, it was just see section 3C for the complete list of items, because the list on the back of this page only provides 5 of the things that are required, as opposed to all of the information.
Okay. Okay, so those are the changes, and so we'll go back and take them one by one, and again, the board will discuss them, and then when we're done, we'll open it up to anyone in the audience who wishes to weigh in. So let's take the first one. Incidentally, I didn't introduce the lady to my right. You know her name is Sarah. Well, it's Sarah B. Clark, and she is the PPO for the town. That's the principal permitting officer. So taking the stamped and certified copy of the plot plan by a Mass Registered Professional Land Surveyor, Buck, what do you think of that?
Well, in the past, it's my belief, and I might be wrong, it might be in my former life, people would use a blueprint they might have had on file for their septic system, or, some file they had maybe when they purchased the property. And if they were doing a very small project, they sometimes didn't want to go through the exercise of calling up an engineer, waiting 3 months and going through the system. It looks like this is going to not be able to do anymore. Is that right?
Well, you've always required a site plan. It's just now that we're requiring that site plan be stamped by a land surveyor.
So if I have one in my file that was stamped 10 years ago, and I Xeroxed it, and I drew a little drawing of whatever I was going to do on them, would that no longer be acceptable?
That wouldn't be acceptable because you're not supposed to alter a plan stamped by a registered design professional anyway. When they put their stamp on the plan, they're certifying everything that's on that plan.
Yep.
So when you make changes to it that they're not aware of, that becomes an issue. So I would say, no, that wouldn't be acceptable.
That answered my question.
Paul?
I guess my question would be, we see a lot of applications for sheds, and I know that's somewhat decreased by the change in the bylaw on the 10-by-10 sheds. Is this going to change any of the way we operate with respect to something like that being added to the property?
When someone adds to a stamped plan, we ask for permission of the person that stamped the plan. So they have the right to use that plan if they get permission of the person that created it for purposes of a shed. A shed is not as critical as some of the other things before you, but again, if you're dealing with a setback issue or a coverage issue, the only way you can determine setbacks for certain is with a surveyor's plan.
So let's assume that you've got a setback requirement of 15 feet, and it's clearly 25 or 30 feet. Can that be shown on an existing plan with the permission of the surveyor?
It could be, but if it met the setback, they wouldn't be before you. They wouldn't be before this board, likely.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Randy?
I don't have any questions on this, nothing to add.
Dave?
No, I think, yeah, I mean, I certainly understand the concern as to whether we're closing up possibilities for certain kinds of applications. I don't really know, but, no, I don't have any comments other than that. I mean, in the spirit, I would like to think that there are ways, you know, I mean, we see such a different levels of things that come before us, you know, all the way from sheds and not even sheds, you know, the kinds of things that come before us, all the way from complete demolition and replacement. And, you know, it would be good to think that, especially for the really minor kinds of things, there was some ability to give people a break on what they need to submit to us. But that might just be sound good, but not really match the law very well. So that's all I would say.
Okay. So Sarah, as we go through these things, do we need to give you an indication that we favor this so that in the final draft, there is some background as far as how we feel? Or just by discussing it, is that sufficient?
I believe by discussing it, it should be sufficient, because you'll vote on the overall changes. Obviously, if there's something that needs to be stricken from there, like we know we're gonna change perform to stamped. But if there's any other additions that the board wants to make to the language, for example, so that way, David, we could add something in where it's at the discretion of the chief zoning officer / building commissioner.
Would that
Something
you'd
like
to see?
that. I mean, I certainly,
That makes
happy
sense?
we've got 2 attorneys on the board now. We could work on this stuff. But no, if there was something, I mean, I guess my limited experience with laws and the creation of laws and things is we do want to be careful about what we add, because there may be unintended ramifications from that. So, but I certainly, if we allowed it the discretion, if we were to allow some discretion with submissions along those lines, and if a few words would accomplish that, sure, I think it'd be helpful, yeah.
Okay, so what are the words we'd add, Sarah?
We would somehow incorporate into this first paragraph, where we could theoretically even just put it at the top. Each application for a special permit or variance to the board shall be accompanied by the following, in brackets, would be the new language, at the discretion of the chief zoning officer / building commissioner, and then you list all of the items.
Any
Then
objection
that
to that?
gives Jay, who reviews all the applications as they come in, the authority to say, no, we really don't need an elevation certificate for a shed.
Okay. Buck?
Thank you. I'm glad we're having this discussion because I don't plan on any coming before the ZBA the rest of my life, but I do feel serious that, as David mentioned, I don't like to increase the thickness of the regulations, but I understand the need for them. So my question is to Mr. Briggs, can you live with that amendment that Sarah just rattled off?
I think that makes good sense.
You're not, but you're going to be in a bind on your judgment, right?
No, I won't at all.
Good enough.
Yeah, Randy?
I would just ask, Jay, is it because you'll never exercise your discretion to allow something that you don't think is lawful?
No, I would, but if property lines are in question, then I would have to have the surveyor's
Right,
plan.
right.
You know, if it was
Yeah,
critical. But
yeah.
I understand the concerns, and I'm okay with it.
Thanks.
Okay?
I think adding the discretion makes sense,
All right.
yes.
All right, good. Okay, let's go on to number 6/7, where a digital copy in PDF format of the complete filing, including all applicable items listed above. And Sarah explained earlier why that's in. Any comments?
Absolutely agree.
Let me ask you this question, though. If we have somebody who's appearing, in effect, pro se, on their own behalf, are they going to have the ability to do that in a general way?
Not necessarily, but in those cases, we can scan it in. And it's also at the discretion of the chief zoning officer / building commissioner.
Ah, we're liking this.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Randy? Yeah, Dave?
No, I would agree, sure, yeah, I'm, because I can think of some of the, yeah, I mean, I think of some of the things that have come before us, and I think, yeah, putting
Okay.
discretion in here is an important thing to do.
Okay, so now we go on to section 4, hearings, under E, procedure, number 4, where we would add individuals' comments shall be limited to 5 minutes. Additional time may be allowed at the discretion of the chair. This is those speaking in favor of the application. Buck, what do you think of that?
Well, it could be shorter, but I'll support as written.
Okay. Paul?
I agree. I think this works. I would change chair to chairman. I think we refer to him as chairman throughout.
We do, but I didn't know if that was necessarily appropriate. We could say chairperson.
Or chair, well, we've got chairman throughout this thing. Should we be changing that throughout?
I don't think so.
In which case, I'm just saying that we should be consistent. If we're going to use chairman throughout the rest of it, it should be chairman there. If we're going to make a change in a more general way, then we should do it everywhere.
That's a good point, Paul.
That'll be up to the board. That's an easy fix for me to do, if the board would like it.
Okay. Randy?
Are we talking about the issue of chairperson, or?
No, we're talking about the 5 minutes.
Oh, agree, but I'm wondering, for precision's sake, sorry about my voice, I just have laryngitis, I'm not sick. I wanted to know if there would be a clock and if there would be a 2-minute warning or anything like that.
I have discussed with the folks in the production booth, they can put a clock up on the screen. And so, yes, that is possible.
Okay, then I agree with it.
Yeah, I agree too, and I would also comment that I understand what Paul's saying about being consistent, but I think a gesture by adding this word to say chair, I think is a good thing to do as well, so.
So you don't want to make a chairman, just leave it chair?
I'm okay with it reading chair, but if we feel that we want to be consistent, I'm certainly okay with that as well.
Okay. So legally speaking, does it make any difference if one spot says chair and the other chairman?
I'm not sure it's a legal issue so much as it's just a practical one. It seems to me when we're using chair, we use chairman throughout, so I would make it consistent.
Okay,
And I would say that to be consistent with the town, they just changed the Board of Selectmen to Select Board for that very same reason. So I agree with Sarah. So it should be consistent and it should be gender neutral.
so you'd like to see a chair throughout?
I would.
Okay, I got no problem with that. Dave?
No, I wouldn't have a problem with that, but I don't know that we're in the scope, within the scope of what we're proposing here. I mean, that might be a separate approach to it, I don't know.
Well, it'd be nice to take care of all these things, you
It
know?
would, and I certainly would not be opposed to that.
I can live with chair.
Yeah, I think that's fine. We just
Okay.
want to make it consistent.
All right, fine, okay. Then the next one is, this has to do with when read all the correspondence, and the words, "Communication shall be limited to 1 page typed or 2 pages handwritten. The deadline for submittal of correspondence to be read into the record shall be no later than the end of the day prior to the scheduled hearing date." Buck?
I like the 1 page. I'm not suggesting that we control the font size, but I don't know how you're going to do it. If it comes in at Arial 8, I can't read it, so.
Well, that's when I take my glasses off. I said, I cannot read this. No problem. Yeah,
There is a problem with it, but the solution is worse than the problem.
Maybe we should wait till the problem arises
Okay.
before we tackle.
okay. Paul, what do you think of this?
Well, my feeling is that having more than 1 page is not a problem for us if we're reading it prior to the hearing. I think the length of what's submitted is more of a problem in the sense of our reading it at the meeting. If I think back to, for instance, Stage Harbor Road that we did at our last hearing, I think we got like a 5-page letter from neighbors or the applicants. Some of that was really interesting and helpful. My feeling is that we should solve this problem by making the communications to the board available to the public by posting it. And then they have the ability to look at it, and we have the ability to say, well, this one is 10 pages long, and we don't see a need to actually read this entire thing. We can summarize it, or we can do something else. But I wouldn't limit the communications to a 1-page from people who are interested in the hearing, and I think it's helpful to have something more than that. So that would be my suggestion. I really don't like the idea of limiting it to 1 page if we can avoid that.
So is there a number that you wouldn't have a problem with?
I can't think of a situation that we've had in the time I've been on the board where we've gotten so much material that it was a burden. It's only a burden if we have to read it all. And I don't have a problem with reading it prior to the hearing and getting the information to the extent it's necessary.
So how would you change this? Something like communications are encouraged to be limited to 1 page typed or 2 pages handwritten. And at the discretion of the chairman, they could be summarized?
Well, I guess what I would suggest is that we have a provision that says the communications with respect to the hearing will be available online to be read by the public. And then I don't know that we need to limit it to 1 page. I don't know that we need to say anything with respect to that. If somebody wants to submit something longer than that with respect to the issue, that's fine. If it's 10 pages or 5 pages, 20 pages, it doesn't matter if we have an opportunity to read it in advance. Now, that goes to the question of whether it should be the end of the day prior to the scheduled hearing, because that's a pretty short time frame. I don't know whether we want to make that 2 days or something like that to make it more doable, if that becomes a problem. Some of these things I know are submitted late, so.
Oh, yeah, they are.
It can be difficult, but,
Well, the problem, Paul, is that we need to, I think, make it clear that you can submit something that's 13 pages, and the board members all have an opportunity to read it, as well as the public. But there's no provision that it has to be read in public during the meeting.
correct.
So, yes, sir,
So currently, the way it's written, it does require that you read it.
right.
Right.
So it wouldn't, that's why we're attempting to limit the length of the letters. If you don't want to limit the length of the letter, then you could do something as simple as changing that first sentence to say, or maybe summarized.
Well, or
Well-
read, could we put down, and read or summarized by the chair's discretion?
Let me just pull up this page in the,
I suggest maybe read in its entirety or summarized by the chair,
At the chair's discretion,
at the chair's discretion.
okay? What do you think of that?
That doesn't actually go to the issue of making it available online, which it seems to me makes sense. All of these are public records, they're all available, and there really isn't any reason why they couldn't read them the same way we do. I guess, I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that, Sarah.
well, and what would you, so for those to be published or posted online, it just requires us scanning, saving, and uploading them to the website. Is there a specific time frame? Because as you know, on certain meetings or certain hearings, I'm getting letters up to as I'm walking down to the meeting,
Right.
which I'm not able to post those.
In that situation, then you're not going to be able to do it,
I
and
wouldn't be able to do anything. So
right.
what would the cutoff be?
I would say 48 hours.
is that sufficient for you? What do you think would be an appropriate time frame in order for you to logistically do it?
I would imagine 48 hours is doable, provided that I'm here the Tuesday of that week.
Well, that's-
And, you know, unless I take a vacation day. But it's something that could be done.
I guess maybe what would clarify it for me is, how is it different from posting it with us when we receive it in advance of the meeting?
I email it to you. I scan it and email it to you, but I don't like, with this week's meeting, I sent you all the correspondence last Friday because I knew
Right.
I wasn't going to be in.
Right.
So what we could do is, as I send it out to the board members, we could also upload it, but that's typically the Tuesday prior to the meeting. Unless I don't have, unless I'm waiting on things from Board of Health or something that I know that the board is interested in seeing the internal comments as well. But that's something that's completely doable, where we could put it on for the public to see. But I would just do it as one solid packet of correspondence for all applications rather than each individual application.
That's what I was thinking we would do. Assuming that's doable and makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bob?
In the past, I believe I remember the select board kind of nudging some of the committees in town to read all communications. They thought that was important. I disagreed with that and felt that the people that serve as volunteers should have the discretion to handle that. So I like this discussion, but our opinions might be subject to be challenged by those who will point us.
Well, I understand that, Buck, but I think having, in the modern world where all this stuff can be right there, that things have changed a bit. And, as you say, the committee should have their own discretion when it comes to certain things, because we all read it. And it's available to anybody else who wants to read it. So it isn't a big secret. But, Randy, what do you think?
Okay, so I'm gonna stick with my original, that it should be limited to one page, typed, and that it should be 11 font, I think. Legally speaking, we always had to do it at least 11.
Okay,
Curry and new, actually. So I like 11 font. I like to limit it. I don't think we should burden the staff with having to take 20 pages and upload that and wonder, am I going to get this done in time? I don't think it's worth it, because if people want to write a letter, as the chair said a few weeks ago, the Gettysburg Address was very limited. I don't know.
172 words.
Right, so I'm gonna stick with a one-page typed, 11 font, or 2 pages handwritten, and that I think they should be read. And if people wanna add more, they could come and talk for 5 more minutes, and that's it. That's what I think.
Dave?
Wow, yeah, well, when we were just reading through, I thought about, in recent, this, even last meeting, from time to time, people will submit other documents to us other than their comments, photographs from time to time, or, old deeds, copies or whatever. So I thought, well, kind of the way we worded that, well, how do we accommodate that? Because that can be helpful information for us, or for anyone in the public looking. So I would kind of prefer not to exclude those things in the way we're doing this. I do agree with Paul. I don't think the issue is so much necessarily the verbosity or whatever, it's that, because when we have time and we can read these things, although sometimes they get submitted so late, we don't even really have time, But the issue to me is more the one of the reading of all the letters in their entirety in the hearing. And, we've experimented with and tried some different things, asking people's permission to not read if they're presenting. And I think that it would be good to be able to provide the ability for to summarize, and we are actually, I've already talked about summarizing quote-unquote form letters. I don't know that we've defined form letters, but, so we're trying to get to that one, which we're doing, but I think we're also looking at, what we're looking at, I believe, is a balance whereby, sometimes the amount of time that can get devoted to reading all these things in their entirety detracts from our ability to do our jobs, honestly, from time to time, not very often. So those are the things we're trying to get to. If we can get around that via Paul's suggestions, I think that might be a better way to go than how we worded it here.
Mark?
I hate to belabor it. One page, font 11's fine with me. They start playing around with the margins and the headers and the footers. Whatever. I just, I'm uncomfortable with it, but I know to sit here and nitpick it
Right.
is a waste of time, so. But I am concerned about it, but as David said, let's wait for it to happen.
I do, and I also, I want to, because this board has really, in my judgment anyway, has been really, really receptive and good about taking comment and listening to comments and reading comments and all these various things that we do, and we're going to get it and we can read them, but if we can work around that effect it has on the hearings for lengthy reading, lengthy communications, that's what we need to do.
All right, Sarah's got an idea here. Sarah's got an idea.
Good.
Okay, so the new language would read, and let me just put this back up on the screen so everyone Oh, and Channel 18 World can see it, so we're talking about number 5. All communications received by the board concerning the application shall be distributed to the board and read or summarized by the chairperson or other designated board members. In the case of form letters, one copy of the letter will be read in its entirety, and all others with the same content will be summarized with, at a minimum, stating the name of the author and the general position represented. Communications shall be limited to 1 page typed, not less than 11-point font, or 2 pages handwritten. The deadline for submittal of correspondence to be read into the record shall be no later than the end of day prior to the hearing date. Correspondence received shall be posted 48 hours in advance of the meeting. Shall be posted to the town's website. 48 hours in advance of the meeting.
Okay,
What does the end of the day mean?
End of business day, so 4 PM would be
Might wanna
our
write
end
that.
of the
I
day.
think that would be fair to write that.
Okay. Well, so my initial thought was that is a lot of times someone doesn't get home till 7 or 8 o'clock at night from work. We close at 4, but I get the email first thing Thursday morning and I'm printing it out, I'm adding it to the file. That way it's still part of the record. But it's the getting the emails, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon as we're trying to get ready for the meeting is difficult, because then I don't know what's new, what's not new, and that becomes the issue. So I was thinking give people some time, that way when they get home from work, if they haven't had an opportunity to submit an email, they still have time to do so.
well, I like that solution, very much. Buck? Paul, it's still a problem to you?
No, I think that's a good solution.
Okay. Randy? Dave? Okay, great. All right. Then the next one is number 6, and this has to do with those speaking in opposition. And just as we did number 5, those in favor. We'd add, individuals' comments shall be limited to 5 minutes. Additional time may be allowed at the discretion of the chair. Anybody have any problem with that? Because it's essentially
Same.
doing what we did with those speaking in favor.
I don't have a problem with that portion. I just had a question. It says those in attendance. Do we have to consider the people who are available by web, so that we would perhaps revise that to say those participating in the hearing? And that would then cover people who are on Microsoft?
Well, that brings up a great question. What's going to happen on March 23rd, Paul?
Well, participating in the hearing, I think would cover it, whether it's by web or whether it's in person.
Okay. Is that a problem, do you think, Sarah?
Does that work?
Participating in the-
Is it an issue? Maybe it's not.
I
even
don't
an
believe it's an issue, because technically, even remotely, they're still in attendance of the meeting.
issue. Okay.
All right.
Fine.
Okay. So
And
then,
one other suggestion. Under number 9 on page 11, when all the facts have been presented, the chairman shall close the public hearing. We do that now by motion, and it's not the chairman. It's not being done quite that way. I'm wondering whether we should say upon motion duly accepted by the board or adopted by the board, the chairman shall close the public hearing.
okay. So then we go to, I guess, the application part.
Can I make one other suggestion or question? And that is, on page 13, which is section 5, actions by the board, the first sentence says the concurring vote of at least 4 members of the board shall be required for, and then there's an and in there. I wonder if that and shouldn't be deleted.
Where are we, Paul? I'm on 13.
On page 13.
Yep.
At the top, the first sentence,
Oh, okay.
so we would delete that. and maybe you can explain to me, but as I read E below, there's a section there which talks about unless otherwise provided by the board in the specific decision, notwithstanding the Town of Chatham Protective Zoning Bylaw. I'm not sure I understood what was meant by the concept of notwithstanding the Town of Protective Zoning Bylaw.
Huh?
We don't do much notwithstanding the Town of Chatham
That's right.
Protective Zoning Bylaw.
I mean,
So I'm not sure whether that's, whether I just didn't understand.
No, so in the Town of Chatham Protective Bylaw, it is specifically referenced that special permits are valid for 1 year and variances are valid, or vice versa. Special permits are valid for a period of 2 years, and variances are valid for 1 year. I believe what this section was trying to say is notwithstanding the Town of Chatham's protective bylaw. So if our bylaw, for example, was somehow less restrictive, where they allowed 3 years for a special permit and 2 years for a variance, as the state has done,
I see.
I believe that's what that was trying to
That
cover.
makes sense.
So it does make sense, people?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
it does.
All right, good.
Okay, then, the application on the first page, striking out if the applicant is someone other than the owner of the property, explain the basis for his or her interest in this request.
I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
Okay? And then on the back, the packets can obviously have more than the 5 things, so you have to take a look at the complete list, not the short list. So that's fine, too. Yeah.
And then there's the adding the email line on
Oh, you're right.
the previous page.
That's right.
Let me ask one other question. That's on page 27, which deals with Appendix 3. There's a line there which says negotiations, which I'm not sure what that refers to.
That is part of the, 40B application.
Right.
That's part of that appendices. It's more of just a timeline for us to make sure, so notify the chairman and the ZBA first day. So the trigger is the day, if you will. And the items on the right-hand side are the required action.
Right. So, but I'm not clear on what we're talking about in terms of what the trigger is. That's blank. And negotiations, I'm not sure what negotiations we're talking about.
Well,
This-
that's where the applicant says, I can't build the streets in here at 25 feet wide. I want it 15 feet wide, and so on and so forth. And we've had 40Bs that have had up to 20. And the trade-off is, well, how many affordable units? And they might say 3, and we could say, no, that's not enough. For what you want, it needs to be 5. So that's where the negotiations come in, about what they want that steers it away from proper zoning, and in turn, how many affordable units in the project they are willing to, sell at the price that is quite a bit less than everything else.
That also flushes out what, if any, waivers need to be granted by the board.
Which would also be true.
Okay.
All right. So now we'll open this up to anyone here in the audience or on Microsoft Teams who wishes to weigh in on any of these changes. And if so, oh, no. Mr. Riley? Would you gentlemen start the 5-minute clock, please?
Bill Riley, I just think that, part of the problem that people have is the time of the meeting. In other words, it's during the workday for a lot of people. We have a lot of folks who work off Cape and, would have to take a whole day off to come attend the meeting. And back in the good old days when the meetings were at 7 o'clock on a Wednesday evening, that wasn't a problem. They could come to the meeting. I think the limitations on written submissions, as much as I hate sitting here while you read them, is very difficult for people who, can't be here. I think that, as they say, as much as I hate sitting through a 7-page letter, that, I think it's only fair to let them say their piece.
Is there anyone else here that would like to add their comments to this? I don't see anyone. Do we see anybody on Teams, Sarah?
I see no one with their hand raised on Teams.
Okay. Then, did any member want to continue Mr. Riley's comments, or are you all done?
I think we did address it, so I think at this point, I'm probably done.
All right. Yep.
Would you like a motion to adopt these changes?
Please.
Yes, please.
All right,
Yes.
I'll move to adopt the changes that we've discussed today, and go forward on that basis.
And Dave each seconds.
Okay, we need a vote.
Buck says yes.
Paul says yes?
Randy says yes.
Dave each says yes.
And I say yes. And do we still have to formally adopt them at the next meeting, or is that sufficient?
I will distribute them prior to having them stamped in at the town clerk's
that
office
would
as
be-
required.
Excellent. Good, all right, so we won't be discussing again. Okay, thank you all very much. So now we go on with the business, the regular business of today. And I didn't go through how we run the meeting. Does anybody want me to do that? Most everybody's pretty familiar with it, so I don't see anybody that wants, so I will.
I would just let them know about the voting requirements.
Okay. Yeah, the voting requirements in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, to be successful, you need to have a supermajority. So in our case, there are 5 votes, and you're looking at the voters. So for you to be successful, that means you have to get 4 yeses. 3 yeses does not do it. Okay. Sarah, let's start with, we have a withdrawal, I believe. Do you want to do that?
We have a request for continuance.
Oh, no. Okay.
Application number 23-001, Robert Fogel and Ellen Mahoney, care of James McGrath, 259 Queen Anne Road, Harwich, Mass. 02645. Owners of property located at 9 Power Lane, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 9K, Block 18, Lot LP 9. The applicant seeks a dimensional variance from the abutters setback requirements under Appendix 2 of the protective bylaw for the construction of an accessory structure, pool house. The pool house was installed 22 feet from the southerly abutter where a 25-foot setback is required. The lot contains 20,535 square feet in the R60 zoning district. A dimensional variance is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, Section 10, and Section 8D2C of the Chatham Protective Bylaw. This was continued from February 9th, 2023.
This is a letter from William Litchfield. He writes on February 16th, Sarah, as I discussed when I signed the extension, I'm confirming that I've been retained and regret that I cannot be present for the February 23rd session. Any comments? Buck?
No comment.
Do I understand that there is a request for a continuance?
Somewhere there.
All right,
It's inferred.
Yeah, so after speaking to Attorney Litchfield, I told him the earliest availability we would have is we could add him to the end of the March 23rd agenda.
well, I'll move to grant the requested continuance to March 23, 23.
Dave Veach seconds.
Buck votes yes.
Paul votes yes.
Yes,
And Dave Veach votes yes.
Well, I think you all know how I feel about continuances, but particularly we made an exception for this gentleman, and he assured us he'd be here today, and he's not. But in deference to Mr. Litchfield, I will vote yes. Okay, 23-002, please, Sarah.
Application number 23-002, DiMarzio Living Trust, care of Eric Tolley, 299 White's Path, South Yarmouth, Mass. 02664. Owner of property located at 16 Phoebe Lane, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 3C, Block 39E, Lot P8. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a conforming dwelling on a non-conforming lot via the demolition of the existing sunroom and the construction of additions. The existing dwelling and proposed additions comply with all bulk and dimensional requirements of the bylaw, but is considered a substantial alteration, and under the second except clause of Section 6 of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, such substantial alteration requires the grant of a special permit. The existing building coverage is 1,222 square feet, 9.4%, and the proposed building coverage is 1,922 square feet, 14.8%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is non-conforming in that it contains 12,953 square feet, where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the protective bylaw.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For the record, my name is Eric Tolley of ERT Architects, representing Jim and Lisa DiMarzio at 16 Phoebe Lane. The proposal before you today is a special permit for a substantial alteration to this house. The scope of the work consists of two additions. One is in the rear of the house, where an existing screen porch is being demolished and replaced with a new great room and a slightly larger footprint. The second is a two-car garage proposed to the front left corner of the existing house. It should be noted that there are several other houses in this neighborhood of similar sized lots that have existing garages, so we don't feel that this will be out of character with or detrimental to the neighborhood. It should also be noted, I'm not sure whether it matters, but there is a small increase in living or habitable area by virtue of the fact that the new great room in the back is slightly larger than the existing screen porch. But I'd also like to let you know that there is no habitable area being considered for the garage. There is no second floor. There is no staircase. The ceilings are high. There is no connection with the existing house's second floor. So the small increase to habitable or living space will be limited to that increase on the rear screen porch. The project is completely compliant with all zoning, albeit the fact we're here for a special permit because the lot is undersized. So to speak to your criteria, number one, we believe that the site is adequate. As I mentioned, our proposal is completely compliant, but the lot is undersized. The lot and the property and the proposal is compatible with the existing neighborhood. The extent of there is no increase in non-conforming nature of this structure. The site is suitable in that it is, there will be no impact on neighboring properties. We feel that the scale of the siding and the massing is consistent with the neighborhood. There is no impact to sewage disposal, no impact to traffic flow, safety, noise, or litter. There are adequate utilities on the site, and we don't believe that there will be a negative visual impact on the neighborhood, and the property is not in a flood zone. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Is there anyone here today on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please indicate now you'd like to join the meeting.
I see no one on Teams that wishes to speak.
Okay, I'll read the correspondence. The first is an email from Judith Giorgio, the health agent for the town of Chatham. She writes on 2/16, I have reviewed the renovation for this property. The plan as proposed does not add septic flow to the property, nor does it encroach on the existing septic. I have no concerns about the project. Then we have an email from John A. Gillis and Marilyn Mormon Gillis, and they write on February 7th, as neighbors and abutters to 16 Phoebe, we have no objection to the proposed enlargement of the house. We support the approval of this application. That's the extent of the correspondence. Is there anyone here or in Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak either against this application or has a specific question? If so, now is the time to bring it up.
There's no one that wishes to speak in opposition or has a question.
Okay, we'll have questions from the board. Buck?
Buck has no questions.
No questions.
No question.
I have no questions.
I just have one. I noticed you were going to remove the chimney.
Yes. No longer needed.
Really? Is there going to be like a gas stove or something?
Not in that room. There is one in the proposed new room, so
Okay.
that's why they're eliminating that one.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay.
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Steve Veach seconds.
Need a vote?
Buck votes yes.
All votes yes?
Randy?
Yes.
Dave Veach votes yes.
And I vote yes. Okay. Paul?
Looks to me like a good project. I don't see it as being substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood, so I will vote in favor.
Meets the criteria, and I agree with Paul.
Yeah, I agree with the previous.
And I agree.
Any conditions you're worried about, Paul?
What's your plan with respect to construction here, Eric?
I would suspect it would be a fall start. You know, it's a summer home, so, you know, most people don't want to lose the summer or live in a construction site. So again, I would expect it would probably be a fall start.
And the lot is large enough to contain the equipment that's going to be necessary for the construction?
Probably not.
It's a pretty quiet street.
Yeah.
It is.
So I'm not too concerned about it. I guess I'm inclined to, I don't know that we need to impose any conditions, frankly.
I won't generally argue with that, with that proposal, so.
I'm happy with no conditions.
Okay. All right, Paul?
I'll move to approve the application as submitted.
And Dave Veach seconds.
Need a vote?
Buck says yes.
All vote yes?
Yes.
Dave Veach votes
And I
yes.
vote that. That's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much, Mr. Tully.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Sarah, 23-003, please.
Application number 23-003. Bethany and Jason Paul, owners of property located at 4 Edgewood Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 8F, Block 41, Lot D24. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a nonconforming dwelling on a nonconforming lot via the demolition of the existing garage and the construction of additions. The existing dwelling is nonconforming in that it is located 16.9 feet from Northwood Road. The easterly addition will be nonconforming in that it will be located 16.9 feet from Northwood Road where a 25-foot setback is required. The existing building coverage is 1,508 square feet, 12.5%, and the proposed building coverage is 1,793 square feet, 14.8%, where 15% is the maximum allowed. The lot is nonconforming in that it contains 12,100 square feet, where 20,000 square feet is required in the R20 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the protective bylaw.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Jason Paul. I live just around the corner at 4 Edgewood Road with my wife, Beth, and our 7-year-old son and 5-year-old daughter. I grew up in town, well, Washoe Shore, I guess, in 1983, and let's see, went through Chatham High, class of '89, go Blue Devils. So my wife and I, we decided to move back to Chatham in 2016, just after our son was born, then bought our house at 4 Edgewood in 2017 when my wife was expecting our daughter. And please, words to the wise, do not buy a fixer-upper when your wife is expecting. So the neighborhood is perfect for our house, but the house is not as much, as perfect. So, You know, it's a 1960s three-bedroom home, one bathroom ranch. It's fine, but, you know, we had dreams of making it more of our forever home. And so fast forward through COVID and several planned iterations, and here we are. So as for the criteria, we're proposing the addition off the west side of the existing structure, which would increase the living space to 1,793 square feet, which would be 14.8% coverage of the 12,100 square foot lot. The garage would be converted to living room space, and the roof would be changed in that garage to a gable style instead of the present salt box, making it look more like a living space instead of a converted garage. If approved, the addition and changes to the garage would meet all dimensional requirements, including height and setbacks to the bylaw, and would be completely compliant with zoning. As the compatibility of size, the lot is 12,100 square feet with an existing dwelling lot coverage of 12.5% with living area of 1,508 square feet. If you approve the special permit, the coverage will be 14.9% at 1,797 square feet, which is below the maximum number and within the zoning requirements. As far as I know, there is no increase in nonconformity. As for the site, the neighborhood, as I said, dates back to the 1960s and possibly before. Some of the homes being newer, full capes instead of just ranches. The lot sizes being the same or larger than ours, so the final complete structure would not be the biggest nor the smallest in the neighborhood, and the design would fit very well aesthetically in a neighborhood as well. You know, from a aesthetic standpoint, you know, the front would be clapboard, as well as the sides would be, and the rear cedar shakes. Once construction is complete, we plan to begin working on the landscaping, which will include dry wells in the front and rear to take care of any runoff, plus a fence or natural screening along the bike path in the rear, as well as the western property line. So my family and I appreciate your time and appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this application, either here or on Microsoft Teams? If so, please indicate you'd like to join the meeting.
I see no one that wishes to speak in favor.
All right, I'll read the correspondence. This is an email from Judith Giorgio. She writes on 2/16, I've reviewed the renovation of this property. The plan as proposed does not add septic flow to the property, nor does it encroach on the existing septic system. I have no concerns. That's the extent of the correspondence. Is there anyone here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak either against this or has a specific question? If so, please indicate now you'd like to join the meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to join.
Okay, let's get you up on the screen.
I am by phone.
Oh, you're calling. Okay. Please identify yourself and give us your address.
June Bianchi, 42 Northwood Road. I am a neighbor of the Pauls, and I own the house lot directly across from their garage.
Okay. Please tell us your concerns.
First of all, we're happy to have the Pauls in the neighborhood. Our young family is certainly nice to have. My concern is that the Pauls have a large amount of vehicles in their yard, and removing the garage means that more vehicles will be in the yard. At present, or just before they applied for this permit, they had 36 wheels on the ground. In January, one of the RVs is gone from the yard, and now there are 28 wheels on the ground. I don't know his plans. I did speak to Mr. Paul earlier today, but I would like some permanent plans as to what's going to happen to all these vehicles, and if the second RV is going to arrive back. And it's visually, it has a negative impact on my buildable lot that is directly across from their driveway and their garage.
Okay, so we understand your concern. Mr. Paul, would you like to answer this lady?
Sure. Hi, Ms. Bianchi. Yes, so I don't know where to start, I guess. I don't know of the requirements in town for boats and RVs to be parked in a property. I do know there are lots of properties in town that have larger boats, as well as 300-plus lobster traps on their property. So I don't know, what I'm, if I'm breaking the law, I definitely would correct it. I wish I had more space to hide my toys and, make it a little more appealing to the eye. And so, as I told June earlier, that, if I can find a lot to park my vehicles and all, and be able to afford it, as well as to put an addition on the house and raise 2 kids, I will. But right now, I don't know what else I can do. If I'm beyond the law, I'd like to know.
Let's see, Sarah, how many non-registered vehicles can you have on your property?
One,
Just one,
and that's under the general bylaw.
right?
Peace and good order, section 208.
So that's the only one I know of. I don't know anything about the number of wheels it can have or the number of boats and all that.
I believe the building commissioner can speak to that, because
Okay,
there is a
great.
section
Jay?
of our bylaw that addresses it.
All right?
So as far as a camping vehicle or mobile home, trailer, et cetera, the boat would be excluded. We have no problem with boats. But a camping vehicle would need to be stored in the rear half of the lot and can't be occupied as a dwelling unit.
And so rear half, so the property has the Northwood Lane along the easterly property line, and then Edgewood in the front. So if it's in the rear, I mean, you can see it from the road. If I park it anymore in the rear, I'd run the risk of possibly damaging the septic system. But, I mean, I could, try to hide it, back behind the garage. Here, right now, it's right here, and the boat's right beside it.
Being a corner lot, it's difficult and given the size of the lot. We'd have to, I'd have to take a look at it to see in person, but the bylaw does say that they need to be stored in the rear half of the lot.
So, and so from a rear half, where would that be on there? You mean like the rear half would be this line here going over, or over in this corner over here?
I would say behind the house would be the back half of the lot.
Okay, okay.
May I add one more thing?
Yes?
I'm not opposed to the boat on the trailer, not at all. I understand that may be income producing, but 2 large RVs, that's the problem that I have and my husband. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, questions from the board. Randy?
Questions?
Dave?
I have no questions.
Buck has no questions.
Paul?
I have no questions.
Nor do I.
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
Buck approves.
Paul approves.
Randy?
Dave Veach votes yes.
And I vote yes. Deliberations. Dave?
Well, I certainly think that the proposal is before us is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. I think it meets all of the criteria that we review. As far as the issue of the vehicles and things, that's a separate issue. So I'm not going to consider that in my decision one way or the other. So I will support it.
Buck?
I agree with David. It's not more detrimental to the neighborhood, and I will support it.
Paul?
I agree with respect to the question of whether it's more detrimental to the neighborhood. I think it meets our criteria. As to the issue with respect to the RVs, I think that's governed by other ordinances that are on the books and can be enforced as they are necessary. So I think that's outside our purview.
Randy?
Agree with everybody, but sometimes things like this call attention to things that might not be legal. It happens all the time, so That's why that happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right, Randy. Okay. Do you think we need to condition this, Paul?
Well, I guess the question would be, when do you plan to do this work?
Hopefully sooner than later. I would say as soon as we can find a builder and agree on terms. So, if it can start, before the summer, that'd be great, to get it weather tight before the bad weather come fall. That's the goal.
Well, it's a smaller lot in a small neighborhood. I'm wondering if we don't need some of our usual kinds of conditions with respect to containing activity on the lot. I don't know whether it's even doable, given the rest of the activity on the lot. But it's a fairly isolated spot, so hopefully it's not too disruptive. I guess I'd be inclined to say, to the extent possible, all construction activity and vehicles would be contained on site or at a neighboring property with the permission of the property owner. Between June 30th and Labor Day, no exterior construction will be allowed. No work would be permitted on weekends, and construction activity would be between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. only.
I go along with that.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right, I'll move to approve the application with those conditions.
Dave Veach seconds.
So we need a vote. Buck?
Buck says yes.
Paul?
All votes yes?
Randy?
Yes.
Dave Veach votes
And
yes.
I vote yes. That's a unanimous vote. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, and we're on to 23-004, please. Sarah.
Application number 23-004, Jesse Carlton, care of William F. Riley Esquire, P.O. Box 707, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owner of property located at 105 Orleans Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map 15H, Block 2, Lot L2. The applicant seeks to enlarge, extend, or change a nonconforming accessory structure, shed, on a nonconforming lot via the demolition of the existing shed and the construction of a new 82-square-foot shed. The existing shed is nonconforming and it is located 6.8 feet from the Inland Conservancy District where a 25-foot setback is required and 2.5 feet from the easterly abutter. The proposed shed will be nonconforming and that will be located 2.5 feet from the easterly abutter where an 8.3-foot setback is required. The lot is nonconforming and that it contains 18,837 square feet where 40,000 square feet is required in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Section 5B of the Protective Bylaw.
Good afternoon, Bill Riley on behalf of Jesse Carlton. This is a situation where there's a shed located on the property down adjacent to the wetland. Shed's 82 square feet, 2.5 feet off the property line. He'd like to move it up so it's outside the hallowed 0 to 50 do not disturb zone, which is what this proposal is for. So I can go through the criteria.
I don't think so. That's a nice offer. Thank you very much. Okay. Is there anyone here today or on Microsoft Teams that would like to speak in favor of this? If so, please indicate you'd like to join the meeting.
There's no one that wishes to speak in favor.
I'll read the correspondence. This is from the Conservation Commission. And they write on February 16th, the Conservation Commission held a public hearing on December 7th, 2022. The proposed project was issued in order of conditions. The project as proposed has been conditioned to meet the performance standards under the Wetlands Protection Act, and so forth. And then we have a note from Judith Giorgio, health agent. She writes on February 16th, I have no concerns regarding the demo of the existing shed and relocation of a new shed. That's the extent of the correspondence. Is there anyone here or on Microsoft Teams that wishes to speak against or has a specific question? If so, please indicate you'd like to join the conversation.
I see no one that wishes to speak in opposition or has a question.
Okay, questions. Does anybody have a question?
No.
Okay.
I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds.
Okay.
Buck votes yes.
All votes yes?
Yes.
Dave Veach votes yes.
I vote yes. Okay, deliberations. Paul?
That seems like a straightforward project that meets our criteria, so I plan to approve.
Excuse me? I'm sorry.
I said it seems like a straightforward project that meets our criteria, so I will intend to approve.
Okay. Randy?
I would approve as well for the same reasons.
Yeah, I as well.
And I as well.
Okay. Any conditions?
I don't see a need for conditions in this situation. So I'll move to approve the application as submitted.
And Dave Veach seconds.
All right, we need a vote. Buck?
Buck votes yes.
All votes yes?
Yes.
Dave Veach votes yes.
I vote yes. That's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much, Mr. Riley. And our last application today is 23-005.
Application number 23-005, 604 Orleans Road Realty Trust, care of William F. Riley Esquire, P.O. Box 707, Chatham, Mass. 02633. Owner of property located at 604 Orleans Road, also shown on the Town of Chatham's Assessor's Map, 12J, Block 25, Lot 12. The applicant seeks to modify special permit number 21-072 granted on September 23, 2021, which allowed for the demolition of the existing dwelling and the construction of a new dwelling. The applicant now seeks to modify this special permit to allow for an increase in building coverage. The approved building coverage was 805 square feet, and the constructed building coverage is 820 square feet, where 2,800 square feet is the maximum allowed. The lot contains 0 square feet of buildable upland, where 20,000 square feet is required, and 5,460 square feet of land area, where 40,000 square feet is required in the R40 zoning district. A special permit is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Sections 6 and 9, and Sections 5B and 8D2B of the protected bylaw.
Mr. Riley?
Good afternoon, Bill Riley on behalf of Orleans Realty Trust. The principal of the trust is Marty Riley, who's sitting here, no relation. But this is a situation where the application was based on the foundation footprint, the certified plot plan measured to the corner boards, which added 2 inches to the perimeter of the building, adding 15 square feet. So because your decision talked about 805 square feet, we're required to get a modification so we can get a permanent certificate of occupancy. That's it, 15 square feet. I can talk longer if you want.
Nah, I don't think so. Okay. Is there anyone in the audience here on Microsoft that wishes to speak in favor of this application? If so, please indicate now you'd like to join the conversation. Yes, sir. No, I have to go to the mic, I'm sorry. Yes, that's right. Because we're on television. Just tell us who you are and your address, please.
Of course. My name's Joshua Shapiro, and I live with my wife Sandra at 620 Orleans Road here in Chatham. And the property in question with the little bit of additional square footage is the neighboring property, which is being built for Sandra's mom, my wife's mom, my mother-in-law, and her husband. And since we're the abutters, and we're in the family, we just wanted to say that we have no problem with it, and we hope you'll approve it. Seems like a small thing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor? The gentleman in the back? Oh, you're just waving your hand around.
I was just going to say that.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board and Commissioner Briggs. For the record, my name's Marty Riley, and I am the petitioner making the request tonight. And I want to be very respectful of your time because I know how busy you are here. I also am the former owner of the property. I sold the property to these very nice people who live next door to Sandra and Josh Shapiro's elderly parents, Kathleen and Jim Smith. And when we built the house, when we got the approvals, as Attorney Riley said, from the board, we got an approval to do a 1605 square foot, I guess, footprint for the house. And unfortunately, because we tried to do nice corner boards to make it look nice, consistent with the other beautiful homes in the neighborhood, we were 15 square feet over, which, as Attorney Riley said, was about 2.5 inches around the perimeter of the property. Also, the house that used to be there before we built this new one actually was even bigger. It was, I think it was 1640 square feet, so it was even bigger than what we have.
856 square feet.
So, anyway, we're just respectfully asking that if you could approve this. The foundation is exactly the same size of what it was supposed to be and what it was approved. The building plan that we submitted is exactly what we built, and you know, it's not more detrimental to the neighborhood, and
That's
we have
good.
the support of the neighbors, and thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. There was another gentleman in the back.
I wonder what he was doing back there.
Speaking up here. Hello, Tim Smith. I'm the neighbor at 604 Orleans Road, here representing myself. You know, this whole corner board thing is kind of moving forward as we see it, so I think, I don't see it as any detriment to the neighborhood. You know, we're trying to all figure this out as we go, so we all know sort of these corner boards are the issue these days, so now I know Clark is doing the right thing these days and doing all classified measurements from corner boards. So, being, you know, 2.5 inches around the whole house doesn't, and I'm the budding neighbor and they're right there. So really doesn't affect me in any way. I don't think it's a detriment to the neighborhood by any means. So, if you guys would look in the light of, you know, they're great people that are buying it, so maybe we could look past this situation. And I'm sure Clark will make sure this never happens again. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Is there anyone else, either here or on Microsoft Teams, that wishes to speak in favor?
There is no one else that wishes to speak.
So I'll read the correspondence. This is from Judith Giorgio. She writes on February 16th, "I have no concerns regarding this amendment to the special permit." And then we have a note. This is from the Conservation Commission, who write, the Conservation Commission, I'm sorry, on January 30th. The Conservation Commission held a public hearing on November 3rd, 2021. The proposed project was issued an order of conditions. The project as proposed has been conditioned to meet the performance standards under the Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Chatham's local wetland bylaw. And that's the extent of the correspondence. Is there anyone here on Microsoft Team that wishes to speak either against this or has a specific question? If so, indicate now you'd like to join Mr. Smith. You can't be two things. Oh. You're making us confused, Mr.
I know,
Smith.
very, I apologize. Tim Smith, Minglewood, or Tim Smith, 604 Orleans Road, the abutting neighbor. I just have questions on AC units and generators. Location.
And the question is?
Where are they going, and they can't be within 15 feet of my property line?
Okay.
There are none currently proposed, Tim.
Okay. Okay, none at this time? Okay. Well, that was just my question.
Okay. Anyone else? Question? Against? No, okay.
No one else.
I did not hear what Bill's response was.
He didn't have one, except there's none at the moment.
None at the
There are
moment.
there are none currently proposed.
Okay,
Come back tomorrow. Anyway,
all right. Since we're completed with questions and so forth, I'll move to close the hearing and move into deliberations.
Dave Veach seconds,
And Buck approves.
Paul approves?
Approve.
and I approve.
all right, deliberations? Randy?
I guess this one, the question would be, would this have been allowed at this, with this dimension? Would it have been in the first place? That's the way I usually look at these. And so I would say
You have to
yes.
speak more directly into the microphone.
Sorry.
Randy.
So I'm just saying, if this was proposed with this dimension, it probably would have been allowed. So there's no reason not to allow it.
Right, she answered her own question. Dave?
Yeah, I don't think, I'm trying to remember now, but I looked at the dimensions to the sidelines and from the original plan and this, and that didn't change. So, that is, and the other thing that I would also say is generally, under most building situations I'm aware of, it's actually 1.25 inches be outside the foundation line. It might go as much as 1.5 inches, but it's not going to be 2.5 or 2 inches even generally. So that's what adds up to the square footage. And this is definitely just the distinction between measuring the corner boards, measuring the foundation, no problem.
So the print I got doesn't have any dimensions for the foundation, but after a while, when engineers start drawing up these blueprints, the dimensions of the foundation, especially when it's a rectangle, I think it's a simple sixth grade calculation, but I guess that's not the issue at hand. I'll approve it.
I don't think it was, Buck. Paul?
I have no other concerns relating to this. It seems to me it's a minor adjustment.
Okay, all right.
So I'll move to approve the revision to the original special permit with the conditions imposed on the original special permit continuing in effect.
And Dave Veach seconds.
And I approve.
Paul?
Paul approves.
Randy?
Approve.
Dave Veach
And I approve. Thank you, Mr. Riley. That's a
Thank you very
unanimous
much.
vote. So, last thing for today is, let me just sign my name. Recently, we had 2 members retire from the board, and I want to thank David Thompson and William Grau for their service to the town of Chatham over the last several years. I think in Dave Thompson's, maybe 6 or 7 years, and Bill Grau's the last couple. I thank both of you gentlemen for the time that you put in and the time you served with us, and we wish you both the best. And with that, what time is it, Sarah?
5:28.
All right, need a motion, Paul.
I'll move to adjourn.
Dave Veach seconds.
A roll call.
Buck
Buck?
votes yes.
Paul?
All votes yes.
Randy?
Yes.
Dave Veach says yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you all. Meeting's adjourned.